The purpose of this video is to go over the nomenclature of the Brown Bess musket, and what I mean by that is period nomenclature, and also go over what you can do in order to help defarb your musket to make it more accurate for reenactment purposes. Just for reference, the musket up at the top is going to be our defarbed example, and the musket at the bottom is going to be our Pedersoli musket that has not been defarbed. For being able to draw conclusions on how to modify your Brown Bess, I highly recommend this book because it's completely visual. So you'll be able to sit there and compare that to your reproduction versus the real deal, and then make modifications as necessary. Now, the worst, most egregious thing on the Pedersoli musket is that Grice 1762 engraved on the back of the lock plate. It's got to go. So you've got to get that cleansed off, and you've got to get either a Dublin Castle or Tower engraved onto the back. Luckily enough, I was able to find a guy to do this, Comer's Gunworks, and it was actually quite affordable. I was actually kind of surprised. And I also added additional markings to the lock plate as I was able to see within the book for reference. So let's talk about the wood. This has got a lot of work that's got to get done on this sucker. So first of all, take a look at the lock plate panels. You got to smooth out the teardrop. It should not be as rigid. You're going to be sitting there a long time with some sandpaper working all of that out to match the contours of the original. The wrist is going to have to be thinned out, and you also note that little curve from the top of the butt going down. It should be more of a 45 degree, as you can see right there, and it should not be as curved as it originally comes. So, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and take a look at the what's known as the beaver tail, which is that area right behind the barrel or the tang. And you'll note, if I get both of these side by side here, the Pedersoli one comes very distinct. It's a very deep cut into the stock right there. However, if you look at mine, I've thinned all of that out, so it's actually much more delicate and matches the originals much closer. You'll note on the opposite side of the lock plate as well, I've also taken out all that little teardrop, and the reason why Pedersoli put that on there in the first place was that it matches some of the earlier pattern Brown Besses, but definitely not what would have been there during the American Revolution with this pattern here. I also added the barrel markings, and all of that is available through Track of the Wolf. Just throw that sucker into a vise and start hammering away at it, and likewise the modern markings there removed, so actually came out pretty good there. If we look at the rest of the stock, everything's got to get thinned out. There's just way too much wood on the way it comes from Pedersoli, so you just got to start sanding everything down, and you're gonna have a lot of wood you're gonna be removing off of this thing. And the other thing is up near the nose cap here, you can see how on the Pedersoli it's angled, where it should be much more smooth, like you see at that top example there. So now that we've gone over what you can do to fix your Brown Bess, let's look at the period nomenclature. This is the swell of the butt. We call it the butt plate today. This is the butt of the musket. Past the small of the stock to the lock plate itself, we can see this is the cock. That is the hammer, which is sitting closed upon what is known as the pan. Then from there, we'll go ahead and move back to the lock plate markings there. That's your feather spring. And let's see, moving along, this is all called your stock. That's your barrel. That little thing there is called the tailpipe right at the swell. And each of the little brass pieces is called a loop, and they're numbered from the top going down. So that's number 2, that's the sling swivel, and that is first loop, as it is known. And then we've got our ramrod, our butt of the ramrod. Moving over to the barrel here, you've got your sight at the very top right there. And then let's go ahead and move back on down here so that we can turn the musket over, and that right there is your thumb plate, normally with a unit designation soldier's number on it. We'll move on over to the trigger guard, the trigger, and then the side plate, and that is another sling swivel, and of course the sling. So what about the nomenclature on the bayonet? Well, that is the notch of the socket right there. Moving up, this is what's called the socket. And then we have, beyond that, the bend of the shank. And then we go all the way up the bayonet here, and the only other official nomenclature here is the point of the bayonet. So if you like this video, please, again, like it and subscribe. Thank you very much.